Welcome to the Side Hustle Army podcast. I am your host, Galen Nuttall, and this is the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who are up to big things and where you can get insight to help you launch or grow your business. Do you have a big idea that you just can't wait to see finished, but you don't know where to start? Head over to thesquirreljournal.com to get your free sample of The Squirrel Journal, a journal I wrote to help you pick and stick out your next big goal to see it done in the next 91 days or less. When you buy a copy of the journal, you get access to additional training, a Facebook group, as well as a recording of a 90-minute goal-setting masterclass on how to pick that next big goal of all the ones you might have swirling around in your brain, and then a first free week of how to ramp up your productivity. So check it out at thesquirreljournal.com, and welcome to the show. Here I am today with Claudia Harvey. Claudia Harvey is a Canadian entrepreneur who has been featured on Dragon's Den. Claudia, actually, I saw, we met recently as you were speaking for a kickoff of a business week in this area where I live. And one of the things that really struck me was that you are very much in the arena of philanthropy and talking about philanthropy. And so that's one of the big reasons I was like, I really got to talk to you because I haven't talked about this subject yet. But you are, so you began your first independent venture with Dig It Apparel, and you struck a deal with Kevin O'Leary, who's the famous venture capitalist of CVC Canada's Dragon's Den. And there are so many more things I could say about you from your bio. I mean, you've shared events with Tony Robbins, Pitbull, which I think is amazing. Pitbull's actually a pretty fascinating guy. And now you are also working as a founding partner of BG Wealth Group, BG Investment Holdings, and BG Marketing Authority to help others emulate your success, grow their businesses, and expand their wealth. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you and to your audience.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm so glad. I'm so honored that you're here and can't wait to talk more about all sorts of things. So first off, one of the things that I really love to hear about is, what is it that led you to where you are? Like, what are some of the big sort of milestones, I guess, that got you into the entrepreneurship arena? I mean, being featured on Dragon's Den, starting companies, like it's always something that I find really fascinating. So if you could give us a quick rundown of what the path has been for you to get here.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. I'll go back a number of years. I started in my entrepreneurial life later in my career. I had a 25 plus career in insurance, finance, and really in the corporate sector. As soon as I graduated from university, I beelined as fast as I could to Bay Street, which is Wall Street of Canada, and learned from the ground up from administrative job all the way to vice president of sales within a 10-year period. And the trappings, I'll make this really quick, but the trappings of having a corporate job, I think a lot of people can resonate with, that there's a lot of stresses with that. And you're pulled in so many different directions. You don't feel like you have a lot of control over your own life. By the time that I was at the pinnacle of my career, I had 3 young children at home, traveling all the time, and very, very unhappy. What I thought was success, my early definition of success was having money, which is my parents' and my family's definition of success. I fell into that same definition because you're born and raised that way. But then by the time I got to a certain period of my life, I realized that that is not my definition of success. My definition is living with more balance and harmony and strength in my life. So I started to shift away from the corporate world, create a plan of how I would leave that type of world, and started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 40. So it was quite late. Yes.
No, that's super. I mean, what you just said is really fascinating around, whether your goal is your own goal or somebody else's goal, or your definition of success is your own or not. And I think that, just like you said, the trappings of the corporate world can seem really enticing, but there is that trade-off, usually that trade-off of pressure, stress, time constraints, constraints on creativity usually. Yeah. So it's really hard, especially for, I think, the entrepreneur brain who wants to create and maybe work outside of the box a little bit and, try things out. It can be tough to do in a corporate environment for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is of what you do now, like what fuels your passion for what you do now? Because I find that, it takes a lot of passion to stick it out, create a business, keep going to get through those tough spots.
Yeah, well, I think, again, hindsight, it's now been 10 years down the entrepreneurial business owner path. And I think in hindsight, when I started Dig Apparel with my then business partner, we created a product that had never been seen in the world before. And it's a fufu shishi type of product that's a manicure, nail protective utility glove for ladies. And it has a nail protective tip built inside. And that is an industrial design patent on the glove. And the world had never seen that. So we were basically meeting the need that my business partner and I had to maintain our manicures and our nails when we were active in the garden and utility. So when I started Dig It was creative. It was my fourth child, kind of my fifth because I have a husband as well. So it was kind of my baby. And I literally started it from my kitchen with my kids running around me, with a lot of women entrepreneurs doing that. We fulfilled it from my garage. We created the product over 9 months. We created the website, the name, the trademark, the type of product. We had focus groups with women. We tested the market to see if there was really a viable product and a need out there before we actually put a lot of money into launching the product. It was very, very creative. And because I had such a large experience in the corporate world with finance, marketing, operations, running a company on a corporate side of creating all those pieces together, I took that experience, married it to the Dig It experience with the creativity. So I would project manage Dig It right from the ground floor. And as the course over the years, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you have to not be in the weeds as much when you're starting to expand the business. So then we started to get a team of people with us. We outsourced the logistics, so I'm no longer fulfilling from my garage. We actually have a warehouse in Canada. We have a warehouse in the States. We're looking to have a warehouse in Europe. So it's adding to your roster of people that also have unique abilities. So I'm not the logistics person anymore. I have a team that does that. I'm not the accounting force anymore. I have an accounting team. And I'm not the sales anymore. But at the time I was the chief bottle washer of everything. And my business partner at the time was the salesperson. So it was a really good combination of creating from the ground up, but then you have to start letting go and releasing. And as I moved through that process, through the 10-year process, then it becomes rinse and repeat. And that's when I started other businesses and partnered with other people that bring other abilities to the table. So we then help business owners and entrepreneurs launch their business and product-based business as well.
Very neat. Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many great things you said there, and I want to make sure I highlight a few of them. One being that you tested the market before. It sounds like you tested before you did a full-scale launch, and you compared it to the baby, which is also a thing I heard recently, which is like, it's easy to fall in love with your baby, the business, and think everyone loves this baby as much as I do, and everyone's going to want it as much as I do. And then launching it and then finding out there's no market can be really crushing, especially if someone spends a ton of time and money in it. So that's one of the things I've definitely seen as an approach that seems to work much better, is to test that. I mean, I actually kind of did it with my scroll journal, where I launched all sorts of things to see whether people were actually going to, people speak with their wallets, right? And so it's like, are people actually going to fork over money? Because people can say they'll do stuff forever, but if they actually fork over the money or not. And the other thing I wanted to make sure was, the thing that you said, I really like that you trace the whole path from, starting at your kitchen table with the kids running around, fulfilling orders in the garage, then having a team, and then not being in the weeds so much, not wearing as many hats. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in those early days, it just feels like, am I ever going to get to that point where I can hand off the things that I'm not great at? Because I'm a big believer that everyone has superpowers. And the more time we can spend, the more time I can spend in my superpower and just let someone else take care of as much other things as possible, the easier life gets.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs get into I don't want to spend the money on that. I can do it, so I might as well do it. I know how to do it. But they don't understand that you have a unique ability, that you put this company together, you put this product together, or the service together that you're offering. And the amount of value that I do to stuff an envelope with a pair of my product and go to Canada Post or to FedEx is ridiculous. In the early years, we didn't have the money to have a person do that. But as you start making revenue, you do have to carve out pieces of your revenue, so then you can then bring the value to the company that you're supposed to bring. And oh, it's such a hard line to start giving away money to other people to do stuff that really you can do, but you shouldn't do, and you don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
But I totally 100% understand that.
It's like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
No,
And then, yeah. And just like you said, that trade-off of in the early days, you know, the money isn't consistent. So it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to pay someone else to do this thing that I've been doing, that I know how to do. And also that level of, I think there's also that level of just letting go of sort of the perfectionist, or, you know, feeling like, well, is anyone else going to be able to do it as well as I do it? Or is anyone going to care as much as I do about this?
right.
And there's also that, I think there's that element of letting go as well.
Well,
just, yeah.
And it's also, you know, you've got, I was actually speaking to one of my team members yesterday about this. We have another person being trained, and my team member had said, it's faster if I just do it. And I said, that is not how the next person's going to learn. So I need you to be doing this, not this. So it's taking the time to grow your business that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching my kids wash dishes or fold laundry or any of that stuff. It's like I just like have to like tape my hand, like I have to hold my own hands to just be like, oh, just let me do it, because it's like, yeah, it'll be faster today, but you know, over the next, you know, eventually you'll save a lot of time in the long run. So I appreciate that. And so I'd like to dive on into just the philanthropy side of things. So when you and I met very briefly, it was a couple months ago or a month or so ago, near where I live in Belleville, Ontario, in the county at Picton. And I saw that you know, I looked at your website, I looked at a lot of things you had going on. I saw the philanthropy side of things. And we talked a little bit about this of, you know, I guess first off, it would be, what is it that's about philanthropy that you're attracted to, and what is it that's kind of fueled that for you? And then the next thing would be sort of tips for the budding entrepreneur of what does that look like how can that fit in?
Yeah, well, I think I got to a stage in my life, the business had started to do relatively well. I was expanding my business, and again, because I come from an entrepreneurial family, and money and making money was the be all and end all, I easily fall into that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to a point around 2015-16 where I went to a conference, and I didn't want to be at this conference because it was Saturday morning in November and I didn't want to get up, but I had been gifted these tickets, and I usually speak at conferences. I'm not often in the audience any longer. So I had a real bad attitude, I have to say. I was just, but I said, I got these tickets, and I thought, well, I committed to going, so I'm going to go. And often those type of things change your life, because you don't want to be there, but then something happens that, thank goodness you're there, because that conference changed my life, and that introduced me to the concept of philanthropy. So it was a conference called Social Light. I don't even know if they still put it on, but it was social entrepreneurship and teaching communities around the world how to not take donations and just sit back and take donations, but teach them how to create and have businesses, sustainable business, in these little tiny communities that are so different than where we live. And I thought, and these communities need help, but not in donation help, in understanding and learning how to be self-sufficient. And when I'm sitting in the audience and I'm listening to these speakers who have organizations that do this, I thought, aha, that's what's missing in my life. I've been money-oriented, success-oriented. I have everything that you could possibly need in North America in a humble way. And I started to live in gratitude with that, because I am so thankful that I have that in my life. What can I start to give back? So it was this aha moment sitting in the audience in this time in my life where I'm like, I need to do this. And it was the missing piece of my life. So fast forward the next year, now that I have it in the back of my brain that I'm looking to do something, don't know what that is. And then I fast forward about 6 months thinking, maybe I'll create my own foundation. Oh gosh, that's a lot of work. That's creating your own baby itself. I'm like, maybe not. Fast forward another 4 months, and I see an opportunity that's in my neighborhood with this organization called sonas.org, SONAS.org. And it's helping women in Cambodia in villages be self-sustaining with manufacturing and looming their own scarves. And they needed help. And so I contacted the founder of that organization. Fast forward another year, I'm visiting the village in Cambodia, and I now sit on their advisory team and help them with numerous products that they've now launched across the world. And that is completely 100% fulfilling. And the women in the organization, it's not even an organization, it is an organization. I shouldn't minimize it. There's 12 women, and we created this whole infrastructure where they clothe, feed, and educate their kids. The one-room schoolhouse is literally beside the weaving project, and they're happy. They are unbelievably happy. They come in such different circumstances than we have. But these women and this community is wonderfully happy with the little bit that they have, and they're grateful, and that matched my gratitude. So it was aligning synergies and feeling. I was feeling the same thing here that they were feeling there. I was trying to do the same thing here that they were doing there, but in totally different ways. And I have so much different experience that I can help them.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. So fast forward another year, so to this year. So my business partner and I created the BG, Beyond Growth Scholarship Fund.
Okay.
And we now fund one person out of that village every year to go to university in Phnom Penh University.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so our first recipient is a woman. She's 18 and she's going to civil engineering. And we sort of extrapolated that in 5 years' time after she graduates, she then has to sponsor a person to go to university.
Okay.
And they graduate and they have to sponsor. So in 30 years, we'll have 72 graduates.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So, I mean, I love what you're saying around, starting somewhere. It seems like you kind of, you went to this conference, you got kind of the idea behind it. And like you said, the idea of starting a foundation, like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start something massive right off the bat. It sounds like, you identified this existing, or like you identified this group, a way to help them. And I love what you said about, helping them become self-sustaining. And because I actually did a postgrad in education for development, and one of the stories that I found really interesting was they're talking about how there's been so much money poured into development over the last 50, 70, 80 years, and the results have not matched the amount of money that's gone in. It doesn't seem to make sense. And one of the things they talked about was that most of it is a bit of a handout, like you've got this thing now, and it's not a lot of training. It's not a lot of empowerment of the people. And the funniest, or I shouldn't say funny, it's funny/tragic case studies I heard was this group from outside went to this community. I think it was in South America, and they said, oh, what do we need to do to this community to make it look like? Basically going in with the idea of their lives should look more like our lives. Like that was the notion they had. Like, what can we do to make this community look more like my community, in this case, probably America? And they said, okay, well, these people have chickens running everywhere, so we're going to build chicken coops for them because that's going to help them. And so, and they didn't talk to the people that lived there or anything. People were living in mud floored huts basically. And so they built them a state-of-the-art chicken coop so the chickens wouldn't be running around. They told people how to run the chicken coop and all this stuff. They left, they came back, and the people had moved into the chicken coops, and the chickens were living in their houses because the thing they had built was nicer than the houses they owned.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
And so they hadn't consulted. There was it was very much a paternalistic approach of just this, we're going to deliver this thing to you and it's going to make your life better, and not getting feedback. So, I love that what you're saying about the idea of taking something that they already know how to do, but helping empower them to provide it to more people, and then translating that into community growth of sending someone to university and then giving back again. And then the last thing you said, and I'll say, is around that gratitude matching your gratitude. There's really, it's so funny. So often I'll read books on how to be successful in business. And I keep seeing the theme over and over again of gratitude. And, almost every book I've ever read on how to succeed is, starting your own business is like writing thank you notes and being grateful and thanking people, and just it keeps coming back and back. And even some research that shows that gratitude rewires the brain, because as the life of an entrepreneur, it's very easy to fall into the negative of this didn't go right, this person is doing better than me, this person has it all figured out and I don't. But when I look for gratitude, I find more things to be grateful for. And if all I find is negative things, then I'm just going to find more negative things.
Right. It's totally right. Because gratitude breeds positivity, and the positivity brings abundance, and then people feel that out there. I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that. They look at the negative. Oh my gosh, this sale didn't happen. This, my cash flow is tight. Oh my goodness. I totally understand. Like in the early stages, cash flow was extremely tight, really hard. We were at one point $1,000 away from bankruptcy. And sure, absolutely bootstrapping the company and doing everything you possibly can to make sure that you're successful. But then again, back to what is your definition of success, and how much then can you start giving back? And you don't have to be a Bill Gates and a Steve Jobs or past Steve Jobs to have the ability to give back to an organization or a community that's in different circumstances than you. And you can do it in-kind services. You can do in-kind product. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give dollars. You can give advice if you have specific advice to give, but it's also extremely important to listen to them and what they need, as you said, with the chicken example.
Yeah. And I like what you said about it. It can be in kind, like entrepreneurs, even a budding entrepreneur usually has a skill set that other people, the average employee, I should say, doesn't have. And so, I've seen entrepreneurs go into the community to help with programs for youth, just giving a couple hours here and there to give a talk about, how they got started or what they're doing. And it can be really impactful for people to see that, that example in their own community of someone who has struck out on their own and building something. So I like that idea too, because a lot of times, when budding entrepreneurs think of cash flow, it's like, nope, not going to happen. Like how can I possibly give money to something, but can I give my services or my expertise? So that's really interesting.
Right. And a lot of people even start with volunteerism in their own community. I was a parent council person for years when my kids were in school, and I did a lot of volunteering on the grassroots level in my community. And I personally get more fulfillment from a global perspective where I can help an organization versus going to a soup kitchen. It's just, that's just me. I don't discount that at all in any way. I think it's wonderful because that again is in-kind service. It's just finding what really marries with your own personality and what you really like. And then that will just be beneficial to everybody, yourself and the organization that you're supporting.
Yeah. And I think that's a big role of the entrepreneur is sort of know thyself, like what's going to work, and try things, of course. Like sometimes it's just trial and error to figure out what's going to work. But I like what you said about, finding what works for you and what gives you that satisfaction and like how to make the most of it. And so what I was going to ask around, what are the next steps for your organization? What are the next big things that you see? I know you already mentioned that you have this in 30 years, you'll have 72 students. Like you've already mapped out what it's going to look like over the next 30 years. But, what are some of the next steps for you?
Well, with my businesses, growing all the businesses right now is very exciting. With our Dig It apparel business, we've launched a new product just this summer, and that product is called Dig It in the Sun. And it's a biopolymer dot you put on your body, and it tells you when you're exposed to harmful sun rays, UV rays. You put sunblock over your body, it changes color, and as your sunblock leaves your body, the dot turns back to purple, acting like your skin getting colored by the sun. Yeah, so that product is launching worldwide in 2019 and 20, and that's extremely exciting. But as I mentioned, I have a team of people in every company. So I also assist with other people that want to kick it to the next level. And we created the BG group of companies. So the BG Holdings Company, the Marketing Authority Company, and BG Accounting and Business Solutions. So anybody that needs assistance from a small level to an ongoing concern level company that just needs assistance and emulate what I've done, and I've launched businesses with success, is we can assist them doing that as well. So in that, those companies are growing in leaps and bounds as well. So it's very exciting.
I imagine, because I feel like I don't know if I have stats to back this up, but I feel like, certainly there's a trend towards, I heard something about it was a survey of millennials, and the number of millennials that want to be their own boss is much higher than any generation in the past and a lot of times it's out of necessity as well as interest. I think it's fascinating that you're, it was actually interesting. Earlier today, I was in an interview and someone said to me, what would you tell a starting entrepreneur? Or what advice would you have given yourself? That sort of thing. And I said, seek out a mentor as early as humanly possible, because it just speeds things up immensely. And getting that person who's already walked the path, Steve Jobs has a quote that says, you can only connect the dots going backwards. You can't connect them going forwards. And
I like that.
Someone who's already connected all those dots and walked that path can say, yeah, step here, step here, step here. And I think it's hard sometimes. I certainly am stubborn as an entrepreneur. Like, I'll just figure it out myself. I can figure this out. But each and every time I have engage someone who's already done what I'm setting out to do, it speeds things up tremendously. So I think it's really neat that you have these organizations or companies that can help entrepreneurs trace that path with already very clear milestones and markings.
Yeah. Well, and I think in today's world, we have even podcasts like yourself. I didn't have that way back when I started out in my career. If I could only have had a tiny kernel of what I know today back when I was in my early 20s, oh my goodness. That was so nice. So it's seeking out advice from all types of aspects and all types of places, and not thinking that you know it all, because you don't. Like when people come to me with their business ideas, or they're needing help in their businesses, and they say, well, they're doing this, this, and this, I can literally see where they have fallen down, and where they would have just pivoted this way, it would have gone off in a different direction. But that only comes with experience. Completely only comes with experience. So yes, like you said, I'm very happy to offer that opportunity to anybody that needs it.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't warn you that I was going to ask you this question, but I think it's a good one to end on, because it would be, what was the time that you felt, like, I don't know if you want to put it as the lowest point, or what was a time when you felt like this just isn't going to work, but then what was it like, or what did it take to kind of get out of that? Because I feel like I get those a lot, as an entrepreneur, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is finally where nothing's working, it's time to give in, but then invariably something will happen to kind of get me out of it or take me out of it. So would you mind sharing one example of that for yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'll go back to around 2010, which was about a year and a half into our business. We had just come off of Dragon's Den, so we were very visible in Canada and starting to be visible in the United States. We had our first big PO, purchase order, from a big box store in Canada, and we got product in that was less than stellar, very difficult to sell everything, but our money was already gone, because in the manufacturing world, you have to pay upfront before you receive your product. And $30,000 to a small little company is a lot. And that was our entire product allotment for the next coming season. And you get this product in that was not at all sellable. So it could either have completely crushed us, and I would have gone, or many people would have gone, I'm done. I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I put so much money, time, and effort into it, and I'm not seeing a lot of results. And I'm just going to stop. Or, and this was me, there's no way that this is going to stop me from the vision and the planning that I wanted to do. So how do I get around this? How do I figure out how to do this? So literally hired people that I couldn't afford, re-tagged the product, and took one glove apart and took the other glove and matched a right hand to a left hand that were sellable, re-tagged it, and within 3 weeks we got our purchase order out with barely enough room and enough product to be able to match it, but we did. And because of that, it just started the whole wheel and the cycle moving forward. So we got into other stores and other products, and it's just the wheel. So there's definitely moments in everybody's business life that you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. It's just not. But I think the answers is tenacity, and surround yourself with people that can help you and rise you up, and really give you proper advice of, do you think that this is really, is this a sign that I shouldn't do this? And take the advice from people that have been there. And that's what we just talked about. So I surround myself with people, advisors, and people in my network that I've cultivated over the course of my career, that I will go to with specific questions, advice, and what do you really think? And I listen to them. Then I make my own decisions, because again, I'm tenacious and stubborn. But it was definitely a pinnacle part of life when I opened the boxes with the product that wasn't stellar, and I literally wanted to throw up on the warehouse floor. The warehouse that I couldn't afford, because I left my garage to go to that warehouse. So
wow,
it was a hard day. It was very hard.
And I mean, it sounds like you asked the question, how can we make this work? Like, how might this work? How can we figure this out?
Yeah.
which is that, after that, I imagine after that feeling of throwing up on the floor passed, you said, all right, how can we make this work? And that,
Yeah.
even as you're telling the story, it's like my heart is speeding up a little bit. And I'm like, my thing is I get really flushed in the face when things are not going well. And I like overheat and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening when multiple things happen at the same time. So I really love that idea of just, how are we going to make this work?
Right.
This is, we can figure this out. How are we going to make it work? So that's
Right.
very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Cause those
Yeah,
are,
my pleasure.
it helps. I think it helps everyone to hear that, because I think that far too often, it's the apparent, 100% fail proof success that people like want to see or portray on the outside, but everyone has had those moments.
Yes.
We've even mentioned Bill Gates and Steve Jobs in this interview, and both of them have had gone through serious issues during their business lives, where they had to be bailed out, where they had all sorts of things, and it's
There's
something that keeps going.
There's a book that came out a couple of years ago, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike.
Okay.
And I read the book when it came out, and I thought, because I'm a product-based business,
Okay.
it was phenomenal. Shoe Dog was amazing.
Shoe
and
Dog.
he talks about the evolution of Nike, and literally for 20 years he was almost bankrupt. But he was worldwide. He was in all kinds of athletes' endorsements, but it was the growth of Nike, and it's a fantastic book. Just
very cool. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. Yeah. Cause there's definitely, that physical product side. I do a little bit of physical product, but it's mostly digital. And there's definitely that shift too I do physical and digital, really. It's a combo. And I have a box of journals in my bedroom as we speak. I think I did an order of 20 the other day. Someone bought 10 and it was enough for me to print 20. And then now I'm shipping out 10. And my kids are sitting there watching me put journals into envelopes and ship them off, and as I tweak as I go, and someday, someone else will be doing that, I guess, or I'll have some sort of ship on demand. But it's right now, I've got journals in my house and that's how that's working.
I hear you.
Anyways, perfect.
I have a warehouse one day for you.
Exactly. Well, I'll be doing it differently eventually. So I'm still in those early days of kind of figuring everything out, but getting more and more automated as I go. Perfect. So, Claudia, thank you so much for sharing your history, your passion for philanthropy, and the ups and downs that you've experienced. And so what, before we end, I want to make sure that people know the best way. I know you've got, I downloaded a guide that you created. So I don't know if that's the best way for people to sort of kind of get plugged into what you're up to, but be sure to tell us what's the best way for people to follow you.
If you go to claudiaharvey.com, quite simple, my name.com, and then you can download a free ebook that I've created about 5 successful strategies that you can implement in your daily life. And that's the start. And then if you have any questions, concerns, you can contact me through the website and we can definitely help you in any way. I also do want to leave one other thought. Yeah. I'm going back to Cambodia next year in September and taking anybody that wants to come with me
Wow.
to go to the village. So that would be at least 4 days exclusive time with me in the village, learning about their programs and then getting to know each other. So if anybody is interested, everyone pays their own dime, of course. I'm not making any money on this. I'm just bringing people, should they want to come with me, to have the whole experience that I had 2 years ago. So, and then contact me through claudiaharvey.com as well.
Well, I've heard Cambodia is amazing. I have friends who live in Thailand and Vietnam, and they're always saying, Galen, you got to come out here. You got to go visit these countries, because I've only went to them when I was a kid and very sporadically, and so that's amazing. No, it's an amazing offer. I'll be sure to put that on the show notes there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking to you and your audience, and it's been my pleasure.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Side Hustle Army podcast. This is your host, Galen Nuttall, and be sure to head on over to thesquirreljournal.com to download your free sample of the Squirrel Journal, the productivity guide to help you hit your next big goal in the next 91 days or less. It includes the goal-setting exercises, plus a free first week of the squirreljournal.com daily morning and evening activities to keep you on track for your next big goal. Take care, and until the next time.